And now let me introduce Mary Egger, presenting her thesis titled, Educating the Whole Person, Charlotte Mason Within a Classical Christian Framework. Let's give her a round of applause.
The scientific and industrial revolutions changed the world. They drastically altered educational norms that had persisted throughout Western history. Suddenly, education began to pursue the new aim of, above all else, producing an effective workforce for the emerging industrial world. These new approaches viewed the child as an atomized individual, apart from family, community, and history. These shifts have given birth to what we now refer to as modern education. Modern philosophies of education are not completely united, but its various ideas generally focus on the individual learner, mentorship, as opposed to direct teaching and instruction, and active learning that prepares students for the real world. In response to the failures of modern education, several movements have arisen that seek to return to the former ideals of education. Two of these, classical Christian education and Charlotte Mason education, are the focus of my thesis. A classical Christian education is one that forms a student first and foremost towards virtue and shapes the loves of a student toward the good, true, and beautiful. These elements come from the classical tradition, but the Christian piece is just as crucial. Classical Christian education integrates the faith into every area of education. It seeks to develop all aspects of a person, mind, body, and soul. It does not view the end of education as filling a student's mind with all the right information, but as the formation of a wise and virtuous person in service to God and to the public good. The Charlotte Mason method encapsulates some of the same ideas. Charlotte Mason was an educator in a mining town in England in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. She was a school teacher, but she was dissatisfied with what she saw in the education of the lower classes. Her career was spent devising what she believed to be the ideal education, now called the Charlotte Mason method. One of the foremost principles of Charlotte Mason's philosophy is that children are born persons. This means that children are capable of attaining spiritual insight and knowledge at any age. Charlotte Mason called education the science of relations. This definition is referencing her epistemology. She believed that all knowledge was interconnected and flowed from God, and education should not compartmentalize it, but should encourage children to weave it all together and to see the relationships between all branches of knowledge. Charlotte Mason also wrote, "Education is an atmosphere, a discipline, a life." The atmosphere refers to the surroundings of the child. The discipline is the cultivation of habits of good character, and the life is the idea that academically, it is crucial to feed children living ideas, not just dry facts. Charlotte Mason took a classical education and tried to make it accessible to the modern, working-class children whom she taught. She discovered what educators of the past valued and put those things into practice. Both classical Christian and Charlotte Mason education have seen a resurgence in recent years in response to the failures of modern education. Some contend that Charlotte Mason and classical Christian education are incompatible educational philosophies which should not be employed alongside one another. However, Charlotte Mason's philosophy of education was largely a return to classical ideals of education rather than a departure from them, and her model can strengthen the ideals and methods of education that have served humanity throughout history. Charlotte Mason and classical Christian educators believe in a common purpose of education, to educate the whole person. They also share compatible philosophies, such as belief in the unity of knowledge and the view of the personhood of the student. Finally, they have cooperating pedagogies, including the use of living books or great books and a focus on habit training. Although there are tensions between the two approaches in areas such as material coverage, the two can be brought together into a balanced approach that serves their common purpose. Classical Christian education and Charlotte Mason education ultimately share a purpose: the cultivation of the whole person in wisdom and virtue, teaching to love what is good and to act rightly according to the word of God, in service of God, neighbor, and country. The purpose of a classical Christian education is not merely to grow in knowledge, but to be able to use that knowledge to build habits to govern one's mind and body with reason and with truth, within a Christian framework and understanding of the world. This purpose of education is held in common by Charlotte Mason as well. Charlotte Mason emphasized the importance of educating the whole person, not just the mind. She referred to formation of character as the ultimate object of education. While modern philosophies view education as a means to the end of producing adults who are set up for success, classical Christian education and Charlotte Mason education see growth in wisdom and virtue in and of itself as the purpose of education. The philosophies of classical Christian education and Charlotte Mason education have broad overlap, which allows them to be harmoniously combined. There are several important ideas that Charlotte Mason and classical Christian education hold in common, including a high view of the humanity of the student and a belief in the unity of all knowledge which flows from God. Charlotte Mason's philosophy begins with her commitment to the belief that children are born persons. In Charlotte Mason's view, a child ought to be treated with respect, as a learner who was created in the image of God and is capable of attaining knowledge and insight. This view of the child and of the person is highly compatible with what classical Christian education would say about the person. At the center of classical Christian education is the idea that humans are significant creatures. Human beings are created in the image of God and are stewards of God's good creation. The classical view of man aligns with Charlotte Mason's view of the student. Charlotte Mason education and classical Christian education recognize that the universe is orderly and understandable, and all knowledge is connected to all other knowledge. Charlotte Mason talked about knowledge as pouring forth directly from God. She wrote of a scheme of magnificent unity, referring to her belief that, because all knowledge originates from God the Creator, it is all interconnected, and education ought not to be arbitrarily divided into disconnected categories, but should seek after the tie which binds them together. This is not an idea original to Charlotte Mason, but is classical in origin. Plato saw the importance of seeking after the central component which binds all sciences and pursuits of knowledge together. A classical Christian education, in agreement with Charlotte Mason, believes that the connecting element which Plato seeks is God, the source of knowledge. In addition to sharing a common purpose and compatible philosophies, Charlotte Mason and classical Christian education largely cooperate with one another in practice. There are important pedagogical aspects of each of them which cooperate well with one another, such as the use of living books or great books and a focus on habit training. Charlotte Mason was adamant that all children should read exclusively what she called living books. These books ought to be of real literary value in order to engage the minds of the children. They should possess quality ideas and content. They need to be not only engaging, but substantial. There is significant overlap between Charlotte Mason's living books and what classical Christian educators describe as great books. Great books are those that discuss the great ideas that are central to all ages and around which Western thought throughout history has focused. The great Western authors have read and interacted with one another's ideas throughout the centuries, and the great books lead students to participate in this conversation. The great books, therefore, are similar to Charlotte Mason's living books, which engage the reader to think about and discuss worthwhile ideas. Charlotte Mason agreed with classical Christian education in her emphasis on training of students' habits. One of the chief goals of education, according to both philosophies, is the formation of a virtuous individual. The educators of the classical world believed that the way to acquire virtue was by training one's habits. Habit training is likewise an emphasis of Charlotte Mason's. In her method, developing the habits of the students is the mechanism for their growth in everything. In this way, Charlotte Mason is part of a long tradition of thought on the development of a student, that he cannot grow towards goodness or excellence by way of willpower or any other means, but he must do so by daily exercising goodness in order to habituate himself towards it. The strongest argument against the synthesis of the two approaches is that classical Christian education is characteristically focused on coverage of a greater amount of content, where Charlotte Mason education is more relaxed with less coverage of material. This is true to an extent, but whether the two approaches are compatible in this way can vary depending on their implementation. Some implementations of Charlotte Mason tend towards a loose structure with little curricular coverage, what some might call schooling light. Some implementations of classical Christian education can focus heavily on coverage, whether in the reading of many books or extensive memorization. But different implementations of each approach vary widely. Charlotte Mason can have a lack of coverage and structure, but an approach that does justice to all aspects of what Mason herself believed and wrote does not take this form. A proper implementation of Charlotte Mason education is rigorous. It requires students to wrestle with complex ideas and to be able to discuss them. It holds students to academically high standards. Some implementations of classical Christian education err more on the side of coverage. They prioritize covering more ground and more subject areas rather than delving deeply into everything the students study. However, the classical idea of multum non multa ought to be central to a classical Christian education. This is Latin for much, not many, and conveys the idea that quality of study is more important than material coverage. A good classical teacher will be careful to ensure that his students master every subject and concept taught, and will be selective about what is necessary to teach. Some of the best versions of classical Christian education, therefore, sacrifice material coverage for greater depth and a different kind of rigor. Although implementations of these two approaches vary in terms of how much they prioritize material coverage, there are implementations of both that occupy the same middle ground on the issue, and these two approaches can thus be brought into harmony with one another. In conclusion, the Charlotte Mason method is a particular implementation of the classical Christian ideals of education. Her methods can be used well in order to develop the whole person towards the ends that have been considered important throughout human history. The two educational theories share a common purpose, compatible philosophies, and cooperating pedagogies. The last century has exposed the inadequacies and limitations of modern approaches to education. Whether in early attempts to focus education on preparation for the workforce, or more recent trends towards screen-centered education for students of all ages, many shifts in educational theory over the last 100 to 200 years have proven to be detrimental. In the face of these failures, parents, especially Christian parents, face this decision. What is the best way to educate my children if modern education may fail them? Classical Christian education and Charlotte Mason education both answer this question, but they do not need to be mutually exclusive answers. These two approaches to education share a common purpose, hold compatible philosophies, and cooperate in pedagogy. Their tunes, therefore, although not identical, work together in beautiful harmony. Thank you.